Hello, my name is Rene Castro and welcome to Building Video Games with Python. In this first video game we're going to create Zombie Thanksgiving. The objective of the game is to try to keep the turkey live enough for Thanksgiving by killing the zombie before it can eat the turkey. This is a spin-off of an old game called Whack-A-Mole. So in this particular lesson I'm going to be introducing you to an in-house library we created called gamelib.py, and also how to create the game object, which is the first object we have to create before we can do anything else. So let's get to it. So the first thing I would suggest is to go ahead and create a folder for yourself in order to house all the files that we need. So I'm just going to do mine on my desktop, and let's call it Zombie Thanksgiving, and let's go in there. Alright, so the first thing we need before we can move on is to actually download game library. Now as part of the video I'm going to provide a link for this location where we could download the game library. I would not expect anybody to even try well, I guess you could try to type this in by hand, but there will be a link to this video. Again, if you're in the classroom, I'll give it to you through Google Classroom. If you're watching this through YouTube video, it'll be on the YouTube video, the link. So I'm going to copy the link, open up the browser, paste it, and there's the game library, which we're going to talk a lot about in this particular lesson. So we're going to download it. As you can see, I've already downloaded it once. And it's going to download most likely to your downloads folder, depending on how you have your browser set up. I'm going to copy this file, and I'm going to put it in this folder we just created for ourselves, the Zombie Thanksgiving. Good. So now that we have the game library, we can actually open up Python. So one of the things we have to do is that we have to bring this Python library into our game. So we're going to do from game library import everything. Now let's go ahead and save it. And you must make sure that you save your game file in the same location as this library. So we're going to go back up to desktop, Zombie Thanksgiving, and let's call this lesson 1. Okay. So let's run the program. Let's see what happens. Okay, nothing happens, but in actuality a lot happened. First, we didn't have any errors. So that means that we were able to successfully load the game library into our video game. But what did that actually mean? Let's open up the game library and let's see what we're getting when we're importing this library. So the game library has variables, objects, functions, a lot of things to make the creation of a video game a lot easier. Now this particular library is built actually on another library called Pygame. The only thing this library does is to simplify the use of Pygame by making various objects, conceptual objects, that are typically part of a video game. So you'll see here we have objects for a mouse, objects for a keyboard, a joystick, and the one we're going to be exploring in this particular game is the game object. Throughout future lessons we'll go into a deeper dive into each of these different objects as we add things to Zombie Thanksgiving. So let's actually create a variable for our game. So I'm going to write game equals game. Now you might ask, why did I write that? if we go back to the game library, we'll see that there is an object called game. So in order for us to create this object in our game, we write the word game. The other important part of a object is this first function here, the init function. This explains to us how to actually build a game object. Now let's say for this and all future lessons, ignore the word self. It's a deeper programming concept which is beyond the scope of these units. So if we skip the word self, we'll notice that there's a W and an H. And if you think of a game, this is requiring you to specify the width and the height of your game screen, as well as the title. And we'll point out where each of these appear. You'll also notice that every so often you're going to have a parameter within a value. Again, this is also going to be discussed in a future lesson, but realize that if a parameter has a value, that means you don't have to specify it. You could leave it out. It's going to get a value, whatever value was specified there by default. So let's continue on with our creation of our first game variable to represent a game object. So we're going to say 800, 600 for the width and the height, and let's give it a title. Zombie Thanksgiving. Let's save it. Control S. For any of you that don't know the shortcut, you'll rarely see me actually go up to the menu bar and actually hit File Save. So I'll be doing a lot of Control S along the way to save things, but you will hear me say save. Alright, so now we're ready to run it. Another important shortcut to kind of make our lives easier is F5. So you'll also rarely see me go up to run and click on this run module. I'll typically just hit F5. So I'm going to run it, and there it is, and no errors. So this is what creating the game object does for us. It creates the window in addition to providing all the functionality required for all the other things we're going to do in our game. And that's the lesson. So let's review a little bit of what was covered in this lesson. So I showed you how to download the game library, and also a little overview of what we're getting from the game library. We ended with the creation of a variable to represent our game object, which creates the window and will provide the functionality we need for all future lessons. Thank you.